I truly believe that demons and angels are real. So if we see something, it doesn't blow up the Bible. Some people are saying, it's going to be ready. It's going to expose the Bible's fault. How? It just strengthens my belief in the Bible because I believe there's some really, really cool stuff in there that we can't explain. And so as we look around this world that God created, why wouldn't we see things we can't explain? That's perfectly in line with the Bible.
You're listening to Faith in Action. I'm your host, Matthew Nowlin.
And I'm Shawn Graham.
We lead Conservative Christians of Tennessee, and we are thankful you're listening to the show. Conservative Christians of Tennessee exists to analyze political policy and politicians in Tennessee, and all from a conservative Christian worldview. To support Conservative Christians of Tennessee in our educational efforts, public policy analysis, and other needed endeavors, you can give a one-time or a recurring gift at patreon.com/TN Christian. Thank you to our monthly sponsors. We appreciate you, and we want to glorify God by helping you to glorify God. Please don't hesitate to send us questions or intelligent comments via email. You can reach me directly by emailing Matthew at tnchristian.com.
Or Shawn, SHAWN, at tnchristian.com.
And you can help me beat the shadow ban on X. I am at MN Bookman. Today's show is brought to you in the Memphis area by Herbi-Systems. Give Herbi-Systems a call at 901-290-7774 for all your lawn care needs. Since 1984, Herbi-Systems has been the premier lawn care and landscape company in the Mid-South. So give Herbi-Systems a call today at 901-290-7774 or visit Herbi-Systems.com and let them kill your weeds. Our scripture for today is from 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 6 and 13 through 15. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come, for men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. For of this sort are they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women, laden with sins, led away with diverse lusts. And then continue in verse 13. But evil men and seducers shall wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. But continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and hast been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them, and that from a child thou hast known the Holy Scriptures, which are able to make thee wise unto salvation through faith, which is in Christ Jesus. Listeners, today we get to do something Shawn and I like to call 3 questions. It's because we can't count to 4, and this is always fun. We take 3 topics and discuss the issue or topic, and we see how these conversations measure up with our biblical and conservative worldview. It's a healthy way for us to model conversations that we can all use to grow in knowledge and wisdom. So welcome to my co-host, Shawn Graham.
Always fun to do this. One of my favorite episodes of the month, every month.
So our first topic today is about flock cameras, and it's flock safety. It's like a flock of birds. I guess they're assuming we don't have bird flu, but these flock safety cameras, you see them everywhere. They're these little black poles around town with cameras and solar panels on top, and you might not have even noticed them. They have that red LED motion light on top at night, and they're extensively deployed across Tennessee. They have thousands of units in operation as of early 2026 to track license plates and vehicle features for law enforcement. They have, solar-powered automated license plate readers, ALPRs, and they're used heavily in cities like Johnson City, Kingsport, Knoxville, and Memphis to detect stolen vehicles and wanted suspects. There have been recorded incidents of police using them to stalk ex-girlfriends. You can look that up. Romans 13 would say we have to obey the law of Caesar. Is that for the birds on this issue?
Well, I'll tell you this, Matthew. It's an initial reaction from me to recoil from this. It feels like overreach. It feels like too much oversight. It feels wicked, that there's a camera. Either way I come out of my house, I get a flock camera that gets me recorded either way. And I don't like that. There's just something in me that bristles against that. I understand that in, Romans 13 is very clear here, that we have to submit to this, improperness. But overreach is also something that's talked about in the Bible. It talks clearly in Acts about, if you're prohibiting worship or things like that. So I think any prohibitations we have would be strictly for our worship or our spiritual authority with God. I think that there's something here that is forcing us to be submissive to something that I really cannot stand. So, personally, while I really have problems with the cameras, I can't find a biblical reason that makes me say, oh, I've got to go burn them all down. Now, other people do. And over in England, we've got the Blade Runners and people like that are going around and they're sawing them down. And they're all over London just mowing these things down. They've gone to a different level. They could not find a governmental recourse for their anger. And now they've gone to vigilantism on this. So I can't endorse that. But at the same time, they've taken it through the proper channels and they've come up to this Blade Runner thing where everybody's going around with saws and cutting them down. So listeners, we're not advocating for that. Just saying that right here on the top. We're not telling you to go cut them down. But I do understand I don't think it's pride. I just think there is a sense of overreach and people feel like when you're being watched, you clearly have too much authority, right? But I don't know that that's true.
Well, so first of all, there's no way that they can actually watch everybody. So the scary thing here is that there's an AI profile being built of where you go and what you do. Secondly, there's going to be an AI profile built of whom you associate with. And people say, oh, the law protects against that. Well, we've had laws protecting against the ATF holding on to gun background check forms forever. And we know that it's been admitted that the government reclaims those. Not even God would have flock cams. And this is half a joke, half serious. Go back to the Garden of Eden. And what was God's question to Adam after he sinned? Where are you?
Where are you? That's right.
So obviously God knew. Obviously that was a rhetorical question. But the idea that the government would impose themselves it really is higher than God in a sense, and to know where you are all the time. There have been so many instances already of these being abused. We don't have access to the same information. Secondly, the way that these work, they don't just track license plates, they track features on vehicles. So let's think about the implications of some of this, right? So let's start with something really non-threatening. Does the government need to know if you stop by the grocery store on the way home from church? Well, does the government need to know if you go to the gun store, right? Let's take it a step beyond that. Does the government need to know that you have not been to any boat ramps and that you didn't lose all your guns in a boating accident
That's right.
in the last year? It's really troublesome. And even look back in recent history, right? Look back to when things were getting crazy during COVID. All right. So imagine that the government had a COVID scenario again and that they restricted travel as they tried to do, as they did in some states. I mean, they definitely did in some states. We never really tolerated that level in Tennessee. We only let them be a little bit abusive to us. But imagine, that they could see when your car is out and track it. Well, you don't have to imagine because they can do that now. They can do that now, and it's AI driven.
But at the same time, you and I both said one of the best things that's ever happened in policing is police camera, the body cams. They have been phenomenal at proving that police do their job well.
Mm-hmm.
So while we have this negative here that we do have the problem of humanity, that we do have distrust with humanity, we do know that for a fact, body cams have been very productive. My biggest thing with this as I look at it is just the scale of this. Matthew, in Memphis alone, there are over 2,000 cameras. That's a lot in one town. And I'm not talking about Chattanooga. I'm not talking about Nashville. I'm talking about Memphis, just one location. And tell me, how well have those 2,000 cameras done at stopping crime?
I was at a store in Memphis. Oh, man, it had to have been 5 years ago. It wasn't in Memphis. It was in Germantown. That store had an attempted robbery at it, right, with 5 dudes who hopped in a Dodge Charger and peeled out and left. Their skid marks were on Germantown Parkway for 2 years. The police were involved immediately. Half the Germantown Police Department was there. They had cameras deployed at that point. They couldn't find the guys. And what did they do? They went down the street to I think it was a Cricket phone shop, and they shot and killed someone.
Mm.
So these cameras, can they work? Yeah, but I don't want them.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I know we recoil against this naturally. It's really hard. I think the answer for us in this has to be somewhere about properness. There's proper authority here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the appeal for us is, hey, we don't like these. We need to really have a better dialogue with our representatives. And we need to tell them, hey, get rid of these things.
Yeah. The one good thing, though, my wife follows me around on my iPhone. And if I could say, no, sweetheart, I did not stop at that business on the way home from work, that would
free up.
I love it when your iPhone location shows you like in the middle of the ocean, or my wife used to go to a Sam's when we lived in Oklahoma, and it would always show her. She'd go and and it would be like 8:00 at night, and she would be just out in this field, and instead of this, and it's the first time I saw it, it scared me. So she's in the field. She's at Sam's. So, all right. Well, that's enough distrust of technology for one show. But do you know who we actually do trust for technology? Some Christian brothers over at Navita IT Managed Solutions. Navita IT Managed Services, well, they're more than a help desk. They're more than a network administrator. Navita has decades of business consulting and analytics experience. Navita IT Managed Services works to keep your business growing as a healthy part of God's kingdom. Navita helps churches and businesses steward their resources to become the best business leaders possible. So visit NavitaIT.com today to learn more about them at Navita IT Managed Solutions. And we're excited to have a Christian-owned business like Navita on board with us this year. And we know that you're going to love using Navita for all your IT solutions. Again, write this down and visit them, NavitaIT.com. If you wrote that on paper instead of a phone, chances are you really need to go to them. So we're back talking about 3 hot topics of the day.
I love walking through these thought experiments. I love exercising our thinking on these things, Matthew. I think that this is...
Thank you, Galileo.
I think that it's great for us. I really do. I hope our listeners appreciate this and they can see what we're doing with this is something they can do as well. I'm going to ask you the $1 million question of the week. What do you think the biblical reason could be that Christians could support Tennessee's redistricting of their congressional districts?
I don't know that what we went to necessarily is the biblical solution. So first of all, I don't want to say that, because biblically, I think that borders are drawn by God and they're based on geographic boundaries. And they're based on natural concentrations of people, which I know what people are going to say to that. Mm-hmm. No drawing race-based districts that go house by house, address by address are not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about natural concentrations and groupings of people. But borders are natural at all levels. So the biblical basis for this, though, is just essentially that you weren't getting what Deuteronomy 13 called for, which is to choose people that are well known among their people. This didn't allow for that because you had artificial districts. And again, I'm not saying that these new districts allow for that either. As far as getting rid of the old ones, we definitely weren't getting wise people in the choosing from among us, especially in Memphis area districts, especially District 9. I do not think Steve Cohen is a wise man. I think he might be a wise guy, but he's not a wise man. So we just weren't getting what the Bible calls for. And again, these districts should probably be redone better. You and I have some friends that could definitely draw better districts, but
most definitely.
But yeah, there was nothing sacred about these past districts.
Right. I think history proves that there is no sacredness to these. What we did was we created something that was artificial. I mean, you look in Tennessee from 1900 to the 1960s, they had every inclination to keep the districts in the 3 regions of the grand divisions of the state. And then in 1962, you had a Supreme Court decision, Baker versus Carr, talked about the meaning of how the court needed to place some more principles on that. And so you had an end to the inaction at that point. So then they forced the actual court redistricting mandate started taking place. So after Baker v. Carr, the rule that they stuck to was just don't split counties. You wanted to minimize the splitting of the geographical areas. Well, that got weaponized. And so instead of it being helpful, it became hurtful, and it was segregation mindset rather than community mindset. In other words, I'm going to take a community within the community and I'm going to apply more power than should be there. And so it was wrong thinking to subdivide to a point where you were taking an unelectable minority and making it the authority of the land. There's nothing that works with that. None of our system of governance works that way. There's no balance against that. When you take something that's unelectable and you make it the law of the land, what you've done is you've installed a new authority system. And that's a monarchy, basically.
Yeah, well, it was the bureaucracy ruling over. So my question for you is, if you just took a blindfolded guy with a ruler and a map of Tennessee, and you drew the lines to get 9 districts, how different would, and you did that 100 times, repeated it 100 times. I mean, Tennessee's a Republican state. How different is what you would get at that point be from what we have now as far as the final outcome?
Your outcome is going to be exactly the same based on generic multiple. If you're looking at who rules the state, in other words, is this a Marxist land? Is this a Christian? Is this a Catholic? The reality of it is we have a Republican majority in our state, and they have it within their authority to draw maps how they see fit, and they've done so. And I think I keep coming back to the fact of, to have power and not use it for the good of the land is wicked. And for you to know what is right and still choose to do wrong, or allow wrong to prosper, like we were doing in Memphis and allowing that district to be messed up. I know it's made a lot of people angry, and we don't want to get into all that. But I think the reality of it is there's not a whole lot here that backs up how it was done or how the system operates. So the Bible just doesn't dictate it. It says there's an authority system here. And I think we're going through that. When the people see that there's good to be done, they need to do it. And I think that's the mindset here. They've done something good. So I like the redistricting. It's good for the land.
So there were also some other weird redistricting ideas that have come out. I don't know if they're in light of all the redistricting or if they're just sort of adjacent to it. Did you see in Georgia where there was some gay group that proposed a gay district?
Yes. Was it Georgia?
It was.
I forget where I saw it was, but yeah, I did see that. They said that our community is not adequately represented, so we want this.
Yeah.
And that's what ends up with the evilness of, propping up minorities, when that's just not how the structure is supposed to be run. God puts our leaders and authority in there to be rulers of 10s, rulers of 50s. And when you take that ruler of 1 and make them a ruler over 50 or 10, you've absolutely inverted the biblical order.
Well, and this is something I didn't realize it, but not only was it proposed in Georgia, but there are gay districts in some areas. New York City has a gay council district that's based around that the Stonewall. Yeah. So this is a thing. So anytime you essentially make elections about affinity groups, it's harmful to serious people. People that don't have families are you can be serious if you don't have a family. There are exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, we need serious districts that are going to serve families and grow the families that help grow, because obviously it takes a man and a woman, but help grow, at least not hinder the families that grow America that we need for the future. Well, listeners, it's always our privilege to remind you about the mission of equipping the persecuted. This group has been doing on the ground, doing the Lord's work for many years to save our fellow believers and rescue orphans in Nigeria. The persecuted Christians of Nigeria need food, clothing, shelter, medical care, and help building a safer way of life. You can give a monthly donation to help create sustainable help for real Christians that have been attacked by brutal Muslim jihadists. So please visit equippingthepersecuted.org today, and you can sponsor an orphan. Now, hear me when I say that, an orphan, in this case, of Christian parents who were oftentimes butchered with machetes in front of this child, around this child, and that's $35 a month to help that child. Or you can order African coffee and have it shipped straight to your home. Every bag of Equipping the Persecuted coffee that you purchase is going to do more than just fill up your cup. It's going to strengthen the body of Christ. That'll last a lot longer than a cup of coffee. And 100% of the proceeds go directly to support persecuted Christians in Nigeria. They have great flavors you can try today. Again, that's equippingthepersecuted.org. And the persecuted Christians in Nigeria do thank you. We see them on our Facebook page all the time, so we know that that's real. Shawn and I are back again. We've been talking about 3 questions of the day, 3 topical discussions, and how we view them through a biblical worldview lens. This last one is weird, so I propose we do 4 questions for today, but Shawn likes this one. I do too. I wish I had the hair to do the thing that's going to come afterwards, but so this past week, the government released all of the long-awaited UFO files. Where are space aliens in the Bible, Shawn?
It's the X-Files chapter. It's in between Revelation and Jude. I know Jude's small, but it's right back there. If you look real hard, you can find it. It's right there. I love this conversation because you and I don't ever do clickbaity stuff. It's not what we do, and this has got to be the most clickbaity, craziest thing we've never done a topic like this before. The answer is demons, right? And that's the end of the question.
We could have talked about like the birth rate, man.
That's true. But I mean, you think about it. I mean, I have all kinds of technical reasons why UFOs. I could talk to you about the airplanes. I could talk to you about the cameras. I could talk to you about observation limitations and weather and environment. But I still believe that things can be seen that we can't explain. I mean, look at the multiple types of angels that are described in the Bible. Think about Ezekiel and the wheels. He was describing these wheels that moved God around that sound like these concentric circles of some sort of gyroscopic movement or something like that. He saw this and put this in the Bible. So why is it weird for us to assume, if we say we believe the Bible, why do we believe that there aren't some weird things for us to see? Now, do I think that there's an army of gray dudes coming out of this? No, I don't believe that. But I do believe there's an army of demons, and I believe there's a spiritual warfare that goes on all around us. So why wouldn't I expect for some of it to be seen in our real life? I truly believe that demons and angels are real. So if we see something, it doesn't blow up the Bible. You know, some people are saying, oh, it's going to be ready. It's going to expose the Bible's fault. How? It just strengthens my belief in the Bible because I believe there's some really, really cool stuff in there that we can't explain. And so as we look around this world that God created, why wouldn't we see things we can't explain? That's perfectly in line with the Bible.
Yeah, so I mean, that wasn't as flaky and weird as I was worried that we'd get in our discussion on UFOs. And I'm, Brian Suave, what was that podcast that they did? That was a fantastic thing on supernatural phenomenon. And, the joke was that the answer to everything was demons, and we don't want to make light of demonic activity. But I also, John MacArthur got asked about UFOs. So I'm going to bring some serious commentary to this that's better than what I could give. And he said, so he had a short answer, which was, I don't believe there's anything more to UFOs than manifestations of supernatural powers by Satan himself. But then he preached a sermon called Angels, God's Invisible Army. And he said, frequently I'm asked, do you believe that beings exist in places other than the earth? My answer is always, yes, of course they do. The universe has a trafficking of beings all through it. The next question that usually comes is, oh, you believe in UFOs? Yes, I believe in unidentified flying objects, not swirling around like glorified frisbees. I believe the Bible says there are beings occupying the universe, literally millions of them filling the void around us. So again, we've got to be careful. We got all the UFO files released, but there was no confirmation, unless I missed it, of extraterrestrial life. No. What was there? So
no, there was nothing. It's been a big nothing burger. The UFO podcast, the Haunted Cosmos, was the one we were thinking of. Just saying, look, God has power over all the realms. Either he is all powerful over everything, or we're not really all we say. And that's the belief there that I think that we can stand on, is we assume way too much of our norms and our wisdom if we think that there isn't some weird stuff out there that Ezekiel saw and other people talked about, and the fear of seeing angels and all these eyes and these wings and all of this light. How can we even begin to describe that? Sure, there should be some weird stuff in the universe. God made it greater than we'll ever understand. I love that thought.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so in a sense, when we sing Holy, 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 cherubim and seraphim falling down before thee, I mean, we talked about this, but, we just had in the notes that there are the Malachim, the messengers. These are angels. They usually appear as ordinary men, but there are seraphim. Isaiah 6, having 6 wings, 2 cover their face, 2 cover their feet, and 2 are used for flying. There are cherubim, the most complex figures as described in the book of Ezekiel. But then there are the Ophanim, I think is how it's pronounced, Ophanim, the wheel seen in Ezekiel's vision alongside the cherubim. And I think those are the ones that everyone usually tries to say, oh, Ezekiel saw a flying saucer. Yeah. But when you release a lot of files on unidentified flying objects, you're releasing a lot of inconclusive data. And Tim Burchett was pretty excited over in East Tennessee. Maybe we need to see if we can get Representative Burchett on to talk about UFOs.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything to add before we close, Shawn, on this?
No, I think that this is what we need to be able to do. We're modeling again conversations that aren't normal. These aren't comfortable conversations. Dig it up in the Bible, find out what the answers are. Look at your current events, guys. Be willing to talk through this stuff and grab a trusted ally. Matthew and I get to do this, and hopefully you're doing it with other people as well.
Yeah. And I just want to declare in the future, we may talk about giants, but we will not talk about Sasquatch. So
definitely.
All right. Well, folks, thank you for stopping by each week to stay on these issues as they relate to our churches and our families. And remember that on tnchristian.com, we have links to past shows where we don't talk about UFOs. And if you want to support our work, be sure to visit patreon.com/tnchristian. That does help us get equipment, things as basic as buying books, travel expenses, stuff like that, to support this work. And until next week, remember, the Lord shall reign forever and ever.